beneath the warm surface of the human body, under the living fabric of skin and the quiet currents of blood, there rests an elegant structure. It is a framework we seldom see, but one that shapes us entirely. This is the skeleton, the silent architecture of our lives. Without it, the body would have no form, no stability, no strength to stand or walk or reach. It is the foundation upon which every movement rests, the hidden scaffold that carries us from birth until our final days. When we look at ourselves in a mirror, we see skin, hair, eyes, but not the architecture that supports them. We notice the steps we take without thinking about the levers of bone that make each step possible. We stretch out an arm without wondering how many bones are aligned to allow such movement. In everyday life, the skeleton is mostly invisible to our thoughts, yet it works without pause to keep us upright and protected. It is easy to think of bones as simple, lifeless matter. After all, when we see them outside the body in museum displays, in diagrams, in the sun-bleached remains of animals, they appear pale and inert. But in the living body, bone is alive. It is a dynamic, active tissue filled with cells, nourished by blood vessels, and intertwined with nerves. Within every bone, countless small processes unfold quietly each day. Old tissue is broken down, new tissue is formed, and minerals are stored and released in a delicate balance. A bone is not only solid, beneath its smooth outer surface lies a complex interior. The outer shell, called compact bone, is dense and strong, giving shape and rigidity. Inside is a lighter structure called spongy bone, a delicate lattice of mineralized tissue, arranged to bear weight efficiently. The arrangement is not random. Every curve and strut follows the patterns of force and stress the bone experiences, just as the beams of a bridge are placed where they will bear the load most effectively. This balance of strength and lightness is one of the skeleton's great achievements. Bones are strong enough to support the body's weight, yet light enough to allow movement with ease. They can withstand the strain of running, jumping, and lifting, yet they are also flexible enough to absorb shocks and avoid breaking under normal use. In this way, they quietly protect us, adapting their strength and structure in response to how we live and move. The story of the skeleton is also a story of companionship. It has been with us since before we were born. In the earliest stages of life in the womb, the framework was soft and pliable, made mostly of cartilage. Gradually, this cartilage transformed into bone through a process called ossification. This transformation continued throughout childhood, as our bones lengthened and our bodies grew. Even now, as adults, our bones continue to remodel themselves, responding to our activity, our nutrition, and the quiet passage of time. Every bone has a role. Some serve as shields. The skull protects the brain. The rib cage shelters the heart and lungs. Others serve as supports the femur, the pelvis, the vertebral column bearing the body's weight and holding it upright. Still others serve as levers for movement, giving muscles a firm point of attachment so they can pull and move the body's parts. Even the smallest bones, such as the 3 delicate ossicles of the inner ear, have essential purposes, transmitting the vibrations of sound so we may hear. The skeleton is more than a framework. It is also a reservoir. Within its hard walls, bones store essential minerals such as calcium and phosphorus. These minerals are not locked away permanently. They move in and out of bone tissue according to the needs of the body. If the blood's calcium level falls too low, for instance, bone releases calcium into circulation. If there is an excess, the body deposits it back into the bone for later use. This hidden function supports the work of nerves, muscles, and countless other processes that depend on precise chemical balance. Even now, as you listen in stillness, your skeleton is active. Specialized bone cells are at work in a quiet cycle of renewal. Osteoclasts gently dissolve old or damaged bone, releasing minerals for the body's use. Osteoblasts follow behind, building fresh layers of bone tissue. This balance keeps bones strong, repairing micro damage from daily life, and adjusting their shape and density to the demands placed upon them. A bone in constant use, a tennis player's serving arm, for example, becomes subtly stronger and denser over time. A bone left unused, such as in prolonged bed rest, gradually loses density, a reminder of the living nature of the skeleton. The arrangement of the skeleton is both functional and beautiful. The axial skeleton, the skull, spine, and rib cage, forms the central column, supporting and protecting the vital organs. From this core extends the appendicular skeleton, the arms, legs, shoulders, and hips, giving the body its range of movement. Each region flows into the next, joints connecting bone to bone, ligaments holding them in place, cartilage cushioning their contact. Nothing is random. Everything is shaped for its role. When you lie down and let your muscles relax, your skeleton remains beneath it all, steady and constant. It is the unchanging framework that bears your weight when you stand, supports you when you sit, and carries you when you walk. It allows you to reach for a glass of water, to turn your head toward a sound, to stretch your body in comfort. It does all of this silently, without demand for attention. It is worth remembering that the skeleton is the same in all of us. Though our heights, shapes, and proportions differ, the arrangement of bones follows the same essential pattern. This shared design is one of the quiet unities of humankind. In every person, the skeleton fulfills the same roles: support, movement, protection, and renewal. And though we may rarely think of it, we rely on it every moment of our lives. In this gentle exploration, we will travel deeper into the world of the skeleton. We will learn how bone is formed, how it repairs itself, and how it works with muscles and joints to create movement. We will meet the many shapes of bones, from the long, sturdy femur to the delicate bones of the hands and feet. We will see how each is adapted for its purpose, and how together they form a harmonious whole. But for now, as you rest, you might simply bring your awareness to the quiet strength within you. Beneath your breathing, beneath the steady beat of your heart, lies the calm architecture of bone. It has been with you through every season of your life. It has carried you without complaint. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep, it will remain steadfast and strong, your silent companion through the long night ahead. 2. The nature of bone as living tissue. When we think of the body's framework, we might imagine something fixed and unchanging, a rigid structure, like the beams of a building. Yet the truth is gentler and far more remarkable. Bone is not a static thing. It is not simply a stone-like support. Bone is alive. It breathes in its own quiet way. It responds to the world around you, and it changes continuously. Every bone in your body is a community of living cells. These cells do not drift loosely. They are held together in an intricate fabric, a blend of mineral strength and organic resilience. This blend allows bone to be both strong and slightly flexible, sturdy yet adaptable. The minerals give hardness, while the organic proteins, especially collagen, give a subtle elasticity. Without collagen, bone would be brittle and prone to shattering. Without minerals, bone would be soft and unable to bear weight. Together they form a perfect balance, a material that is light, yet able to carry the load of a moving, active life. If we could look closely at a living bone, not a dry museum specimen, but a bone within the body, we would see a rich and busy world. Blood vessels thread through small channels, delivering nutrients and oxygen to the bone's cells. Nerves wind their way alongside these vessels, quietly sensing strain, position, and even pain when damage occurs. Lymphatic vessels help carry away excess fluid and waste. All of this lies hidden beneath the smooth, pale surface. Bone cells themselves come in several forms, each with its own task. Osteoblasts are the builder's small, busy cells that secrete the proteins and minerals that form new bone tissue. Over time, some of these osteoblasts become trapped within the very matrix they helped create. Once enclosed, they change their shape and name, becoming osteocytes, the quiet caretakers of mature bone. These osteocytes extend tiny thread-like arms through microscopic canals, linking with neighboring cells in a vast, delicate network. Through these connections, they can sense changes in pressure, stress, and mineral needs. They act as the bone's internal communication system, passing along signals to build more here, to remove some there, to keep the structure in balance. Balancing the work of the builders are the osteoclasts' larger cells whose role is to break down old or damaged bone tissue. They do this gently but persistently, dissolving minerals and recycling them back into the bloodstream. In this way, bones are not fixed objects, but sites of constant renewal. Old bone is broken down, new bone is laid down in its place. This process, called remodeling, continues throughout life. Remodeling is not random. It responds to the body's needs. A bone that is used frequently, one that bears weight or resists force, will strengthen itself. Its internal lattice will grow thicker, its mineral deposits denser. A bone that is not used, perhaps an arm kept in a sling or a leg during prolonged bed rest, will begin to lose density, becoming lighter and weaker. This adaptability ensures that the skeleton is always tuned to the demands of daily life, conserving resources when possible, yet reinforcing strength where it is needed. Inside many bones, particularly the larger ones, lies another sign of their living nature: bone marrow. This soft, spongy tissue fills the inner cavities, and it is here that some of the body's most important work takes place. Red bone marrow produces new blood cells, red cells to carry oxygen, white cells to guard against infection, and platelets to help blood clot. In adults, red marrow is most active in the pelvis, ribs, sternum, and the ends of long bones like the femur. Yellow marrow, found more in the central shafts of long bones, stores fat, serving as an energy reserve. The outer surface of each bone is sheathed in a thin, tough membrane called the periosteum. This layer contains nerves, blood vessels, and bone-forming cells. It helps nourish the bone, anchors tendons and ligaments, and plays a role in healing after injury. Beneath the periosteum lies the compact bone, dense, solid, and smooth, forming the hard outer shell. Inside that shell, especially near the ends of bones, is the spongy bone, lighter and filled with open spaces. These spaces make bone less heavy and also house marrow. The arrangement of compact and spongy bone is not accidental. It is shaped by the forces a bone experiences. In areas where strength against bending or compression is needed, compact bone dominates. In areas where lighter weight and shock absorption are more important, spongy bone takes the lead. This fine-tuning is part of what makes the skeleton so efficient. Because bone is living tissue, it can heal itself. When a fracture occurs, the body immediately begins a repair process. Blood vessels at the site constrict to limit bleeding. A soft clot forms, bringing cells and nutrients to the area. Soon, specialized cells begin building a temporary structure of collagen and cartilage, bridging the gap. Over weeks to months, osteoblasts replace this temporary material with new bone tissue, restoring strength. Though a healed bone may look whole from the outside, deep within, the remodeling process will continue for many months, refining and strengthening the repaired area. This living nature also means that bones are sensitive to the body's overall health. Adequate nutrition is essential, especially calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D. Regular movement and weight-bearing activity help keep bones dense and strong. Hormones also play a quiet but important role, influencing the balance between building and breakdown. This is why bones can change in response to life stages, growing rapidly in childhood, reaching peak density in young adulthood, and often becoming lighter in later years. It is worth noting that even though bone is firm, it is never completely rigid. It has a small degree of flexibility that allows it to absorb shocks and adapt to strain. This flexibility is one of the reasons most bones bend slightly before breaking. It is also why a healthy skeleton can endure the varied stresses of daily life, walking, running, lifting, reaching without sustaining damage. When we pause to consider this, the skeleton becomes more than just a framework. It is a living partner in our movement and protection. It listens to the body's needs and adjusts itself accordingly. It guards the organs, supports the muscles, and quietly renews itself day after day. As you rest now, you might imagine this network of living tissue beneath your skin, the compact bone with its smooth, solid walls, the spongy bone with its airy, resilient lattice, the marrow quietly producing the blood that nourishes you, the osteoblasts building, the osteoclasts gently clearing away the old, the osteocytes passing messages through their tiny canals. All of it working together in harmony, without noise, without pause. In the chapters ahead, we will see how this living tissue is arranged into the great divisions of the skeleton, the axial, and the appendicular, and how these parts work together in a graceful design. But for now, let the thought settle gently. Your bones are alive. They are not relics of your growth, but companions in your present, carrying you forward with strength, lightness, and quiet devotion. 3. The journey from cartilage to bone. Long before our bones could carry us, before they could bend or bear weight, they existed in a softer form. In the earliest stages of life, within the quiet waters of the womb, the skeleton is not yet the firm structure we know. It begins as something more delicate, more pliable, a framework of cartilage. Cartilage is a smooth, flexible tissue. It has no blood vessels of its own, and it is nourished instead by the surrounding fluids and tissues. In a growing embryo, cartilage forms the initial shape and outline of what will become the skeleton. At this stage, the body is light, the framework yielding, able to flex and shift as it grows. This early softness is not a weakness, it is a necessity. A developing child in the womb must be able to grow rapidly, to change shape, to pass safely into the world at birth. A rigid, mineralized skeleton would make this impossible. Cartilage provides the gentle strength needed for these first months of life. As the weeks and months pass, a transformation begins. Slowly, quietly, cartilage is replaced by bone in a process called ossification. This is not an instant change, but a gradual exchange of materials. Cells within the cartilage called chondrocytes prepare the way, breaking down some of the tissue while inviting in new cells that will build bone. Blood vessels grow into these spaces, bringing with them nutrients, oxygen, and the specialized cells that will create mineralized tissue. The earliest bone to form is known as woven bone. It is laid down quickly, without the careful organization that mature bone will have. In time, woven bone is replaced by lamellar bone, strong, orderly layers of mineralized collagen that can endure a lifetime of movement and strain. Ossification begins in the center of what will become each long bone, an area called the primary ossification center. From here, bone formation spreads outward toward the ends. Later, secondary ossification centers appear near the tips of the bone, shaping the rounded ends that will form joints. Between the shaft and the ends of each long bone lies a region called the growth plate, or epiphyseal plate. This is a thin layer of cartilage that continues to produce new cells, lengthening the bone year after year. It is here that much of childhood growth takes place. As long as the growth plate remains active, the bone can continue to elongate. Eventually, in late adolescence or early adulthood, the growth plates close. The cartilage is completely replaced by bone, and the length of the bone is set. From that moment on, while bone can still change in thickness and density, it will no longer grow longer. This quiet closure marks the end of our vertical growth. Not all bones begin as cartilage. Some, like the flat bones of the skull and the collarbone, form directly from sheets of connective tissue in a process called intramembranous ossification. Here, bone cells appear within the soft tissue itself, secreting minerals until the tissue stiffens and hardens into mature bone. This allows certain parts of the skeleton to form earlier, providing protection to vital organs even before birth. In the newborn, the skeleton is a mixture of bone and cartilage. Many of the joints and smaller bones are still partly soft, allowing for flexibility and growth. Over the first years of life, ossification continues, steadily replacing cartilage with bone. You can see evidence of this transformation in the infant's skull. At birth, the skull is made of several separate plates of bone, joined by flexible regions called fontanelles. These soft spots allow the head to compress slightly during birth and give space for the growing brain in the months that follow. Over time, the fontanelles close as the plates fuse together, forming the solid cranium of the adult. The journey from cartilage to bone is not only a matter of development, it is also a matter of adaptation. Even in adulthood, cartilage remains in certain places where flexibility is needed, at the tips of the ribs, in the nose, in the ears, and most importantly, at the ends of bones where they meet in joints. This joint cartilage cushions movement, preventing bone from grinding on bone and allowing smooth, fluid motion. Throughout life, the balance between cartilage and bone is carefully maintained. Too little cartilage, and joints become stiff and painful. Too little bone, and the skeleton cannot bear weight or resist injury. The body's ability to keep this balance is a quiet miracle, unfolding day after day without our conscious awareness. In growing children, ossification is most active. Bones lengthen rapidly, the growth plates busy with their work, cartilage constantly being reshaped into mineralized tissue. In young adults, the pace slows. Bone still renews itself, but in a cycle of maintenance rather than expansion. In older age, this balance can shift again. Bone may be lost more quickly than it is replaced, and cartilage may thin, leading to the changes we associate with aging joints and skeletons. Still, the story of cartilage turning to bone is a story of resilience. The skeleton you carry today began as a soft, almost fragile framework. Through countless small steps, it became the strong, living structure that holds you now. And even as an adult, your bones carry the memory of their beginnings. The shapes of your long bones, the curves of your skull, the smooth movement of your joints, all are the result of that early transformation. It is humbling to think that the very hardness we rely upon for support began as something soft and yielding. In this way, bone carries a quiet lesson. Strength can grow from flexibility. What begins as gentle and pliant can become enduring and steadfast. And what is hard and strong still remembers the softness from which it came. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how this framework now fully formed is organized. We will see how the skeleton is divided into the axial and appendicular regions, each with its own role in the architecture of the body. But for now, let the thought settle softly in your mind. The bones that hold you today were once gentle cartilage, shaped slowly into the enduring pillars of your life. 4. The major divisions of the skeleton. The human skeleton is a single, unified structure, yet within its design, it carries a clear and graceful division. This division is not arbitrary. It reflects the different roles our bones must play, some forming the central pillar of the body, others extending outward as levers for movement. Together, these two regions form the architecture that holds and moves us, the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is the body's central framework. It runs like a strong column from the crown of the head down to the tip of the tailbone. This part of the skeleton is primarily protective and supportive. It guards the brain within the skull, the spinal cord within the vertebral column, and the heart and lungs within the rib cage. It is not built for wide ranges of movement, but rather for stability and endurance. The axial skeleton includes three main sections: the skull, the vertebral column, and the thoracic cage. The skull houses the brain and forms the structure of the face. The vertebral column or spine supports the head, anchors the ribs, and provides the central connection for the body's posture. The thoracic cage, made of ribs and sternum, protects the vital organs of the chest while still allowing the expansion and contraction needed for breathing. The appendicular skeleton, by contrast, extends outward from the axial column like graceful branches from a sturdy tree trunk. It is designed for movement, dexterity, and interaction with the environment. The appendicular skeleton includes the bones of the shoulders and arms, the hips and legs, and the intricate bones of the hands and feet. These bones are joined to the axial skeleton at the shoulder girdle and pelvic girdle, allowing the limbs to move independently while still anchored securely to the body's core. This division between axial and appendicular is not simply a matter of location, it is a matter of function. The axial skeleton is about holding and protecting. The appendicular skeleton is about reaching, grasping, walking, running, and balancing. One provides the solid base. The other provides the freedom to move and act. If we look closely at the axial skeleton, we begin at the top with the skull. This structure is made of several bones fused together to form a protective vault for the brain. It also shapes the face, housing the eyes, nose, and mouth, and providing attachment points for the muscles of expression and chewing. Though the skull appears as one piece in the adult, it is actually a collection of many bones: the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital bones of the cranium, and the smaller bones of the face, such as the maxilla and mandible. In infancy, these bones are not yet fused, leaving soft spots, fontanelles, that allow for growth and flexibility. Moving downward, the vertebral column forms the long central axis of the body. It is a chain of individual vertebrae, stacked one upon another, separated by flexible discs that act as cushions and allow bending and twisting. The vertebral column is divided into regions: the cervical spine in the neck, the thoracic spine in the upper back, the lumbar spine in the lower back, the sacrum near the pelvis, and finally the coccyx, or tailbone. Each section has its own gentle curve, helping to absorb shock and maintain balance. Encircling the chest is the thoracic cage, made up of the ribs and the sternum. The ribs sweep gracefully from the spine toward the front of the body, curving to protect the lungs and heart. They are not fixed in place like bars of a cage. Instead, they can move slightly, expanding and contracting with each breath. The sternum or breastbone lies in the center of the chest, providing a strong anchor for the ribs and a shield for the heart. Turning to the appendicular skeleton, we begin at the upper body with the shoulder girdle. This includes the clavicles or collarbones and the scapulae, or shoulder blades. The clavicles form a slender brace between the sternum and the shoulders, holding the arms away from the body for greater range of motion. The scapulae are flat, triangular bones that glide smoothly over the back of the rib cage, providing attachment points for many of the muscles that move the arms. From the shoulder girdle extends the arm itself, the humerus of the upper arm, the radius and ulna of the forearm, and the delicate cluster of carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges that make up the hand. The design of the arm allows for remarkable versatility, from the power of lifting to the precision of writing, from the swing of a hammer to the gentle cradle of a child. At the lower end of the body, the pelvic girdle forms the strong base for the legs. The pelvis is made of large, fused bones that support the weight of the upper body and transfer it to the lower limbs. It also protects the organs of the lower abdomen and provides attachment for powerful leg muscles. The legs themselves mirror the structure of the arms, though adapted for strength and stability rather than fine manipulation. The femur, the longest and strongest bone in the body, bears the body's weight from hip to knee. The patella, or kneecap, shields the knee joint. Below the knee, the tibia and fibula run to the ankle, which connects to the tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges of the foot. The arrangement of these bones, along with the arches of the foot, allows for balance, walking, running, and the subtle adjustments needed to stand on uneven ground. The feet and hands are marvels of bone architecture. Each contains more than 24 bones, allowing for countless combinations of movement. In the hands, this means the ability to grip, pinch, and manipulate tools. In the feet, it means the capacity to walk upright with efficiency and grace. Together, the axial and appendicular skeletons form a complete, harmonious system. The axial skeleton is the sturdy trunk. The appendicular skeleton is the set of agile branches. The trunk holds the body's shape and guards its most precious organs. The branches reach into the world, carrying us forward, allowing us to touch, to grasp, to create. As you rest, you might imagine this architecture within you: the central pillar of skull, spine, and ribs, the branching limbs of arms and legs. Picture how they connect at the shoulder and hip, each joint a meeting place of stability and freedom. Imagine how every bone has its place, shaped perfectly for its role, contributing to the whole. In the parts ahead, we will look more closely at some of these regions, beginning with the skull, that quiet guardian of the mind. But for now, let your awareness rest on the knowledge that your skeleton, though divided into axial and appendicular, is a single, unified design, a perfect balance of protection and movement, stability and grace. 5. The skull, a silent guardian. At the very top of the human skeleton rests its most intricate and protective structure, the skull. It is both a shield and a frame, both a guardian and a foundation. It encases the brain, the most delicate and complex organ of the body, and it shapes the face through which we see, hear, speak, and express emotion. The skull is not one single bone, though at first glance it may appear so. It is a carefully fitted mosaic of 22 separate bones, joined together along seams called sutures. These sutures are not sharp or jagged. Rather, they interlock like the quiet puzzle pieces of nature's design. In the adult, the bones are fused firmly, creating a rigid vault. In the newborn, however, these connections are still soft, allowing the head to change shape during birth and giving space for the rapid growth of the brain in the early years of life. The skull can be divided into two main parts: the cranium and the facial bones. The cranium forms the rounded protective case around the brain. The facial bones, anchored below and in front of the cranium, create the structure of the eyes, nose, mouth, and jaw. The cranium itself is made up of 8 bones. At the front is the frontal bone, forming the forehead and the upper rim of the eye sockets. Behind it, paired parietal bones curve over the top and sides of the head, meeting at the midline. At the back lies the occipital bone, cradling the rear of the brain and containing the large opening, the foramen magnum, through which the spinal cord passes. On each side of the skull, the temporal bones house the delicate structures of the inner ear and form part of the base of the skull. These bones are not merely flat plates. They have gentle curves, subtle ridges, and hollow spaces that reduce weight while preserving strength. Inside, the base of the skull has smooth depressions that cradle the different parts of the brain, fitting them as perfectly as a glove fits a hand. The facial bones number 14, each contributing to the unique contours of the human face. The paired maxillae form the upper jaw, holding the upper teeth and shaping part of the nose and eye sockets. The single mandible, or lower jaw, is the only movable bone of the skull, allowing us to chew, speak, and form expressions. The delicate nasal bones shape the bridge of the nose, while the zygomatic bones, or cheekbones, give the face its breadth and contour. Tiny bones also form part of the skull's architecture. The lacrimal bones, barely larger than a fingernail, sit near the inner corners of the eyes, channeling tears into the nasal cavity. The vomer lies within the nasal cavity, forming part of the nasal septum. Even smaller still are the three auditory ossicles, the malleus, incus, and stapes, hidden deep within each temporal bone. These are the smallest bones in the human body, yet they carry the vibrations of sound from the eardrum to the inner ear with perfect precision. The skull is pierced by many openings, large and small, that allow nerves and blood vessels to pass between the brain and the rest of the body. The largest of these is the foramen magnum at the base, where the spinal cord begins its journey downward. Smaller foramina allow passage for the optic nerves from the eyes, the nerves that control facial movement, and the arteries that feed the brain. Each opening is placed exactly where it needs to be, preserving the skull's protective role while ensuring the brain remains connected to the world it governs. One of the skull's most remarkable qualities is its balance of strength and lightness. Bone itself is dense and sturdy, but the skull's internal architecture includes air-filled cavities called sinuses. These sinuses lighten the load the head must carry, while also playing a role in the resonance of the voice. The frontal, ethmoidal, sphenoidal, and maxillary sinuses are tucked away within the bones, opening into the nasal passages. The skull's joints are unique. Most are immovable sutures, their edges fused and silent. The exception is the temporomandibular joint, where the mandible meets the temporal bone. This joint allows the jaw to move smoothly up and down, side to side, enabling speech, eating, and the subtle shifts of expression that communicate without words. Throughout life, the skull is not a static shell. It responds to growth, to minor stresses, even to the slow changes of aging. In early life, as the brain expands, the sutures widen slightly, making space before gradually sealing. In adulthood, the bones remain strong and steady, yet they still participate in the body's quiet cycle of renewal. Even in later years, the skull continues to protect the brain faithfully, its structure enduring through decades of use. The skull's protective role cannot be overstated. The brain it shelters is soft, easily damaged, yet it is the seat of thought, memory, sensation, and identity. Around this most vital organ, the skull forms a fortress strong enough to withstand the small impacts of daily life, curved to deflect greater forces, and shaped so that it can house the senses through which we perceive the world. It is a curious thought that the same structure that shields the brain also frames the face, the part of us most visible to others. The slopes of the forehead, the arch of the brow, the curve of the cheekbone all emerge from this bony framework. In this way, the skull shapes not only our safety but also our identity. The face we present to the world is in part a reflection of the bone beneath. As you picture the skull, you might imagine it not as a grim relic, but as a living guardian. Within its walls, the brain rests in quiet darkness, sending and receiving countless signals each second. Around it, the bones stand watch, joined together in a seamless whole. In every moment of your life, from your first breath to this very one, the skull has protected your most precious organ. In the next part of our journey, we will move down from the head to the spine. The strong, flexible column that supports the body, houses the spinal cord, and links the brain to the rest of the body. But for now, you might simply rest in the thought of this silent guardian at the top of your frame, steady, strong, and always keeping watch. 6. The spine, a flexible column. Beneath the skull, anchoring it gently yet securely, begins the long central column of the body, the spine. It is both strong and flexible, a living bridge between the head and the rest of the body. Through it runs the delicate thread of the spinal cord, carrying messages between the brain and every limb, every organ, every tiny patch of skin. The spine is the body's axis, the steady core that supports posture and movement, yet bends and twists with quiet grace. The human spine is made up of 33 vertebrae in early life, though in adulthood some of these bones fuse together, leaving 24 movable vertebrae and 2 solid sections at the base. These vertebrae are stacked one upon another, separated and cushioned by discs of cartilage. Each vertebra is a small masterpiece of engineering strong enough to bear weight, shaped to protect the spinal cord, and sculpted to allow controlled motion. The spine is not a straight rod. It has a series of natural curves that help absorb shock and balance the body. From the side, these curves form a gentle S shape. At the top is the cervical curve in the neck, curving slightly inward. Below it, the thoracic curve arches outward across the upper back. Then comes the lumbar curve of the lower back, sweeping inward again. And finally, the gentle, outward curve of the sacrum and coccyx at the base. Each region of the spine has its own distinct role. The cervical spine, at the very top, consists of 7 vertebrae. These are the smallest and lightest of the vertebrae, built for mobility. The top 2 have special shapes, the atlas and the axis. The atlas cradles the skull, forming a smooth joint that allows the head to nod. The axis lies just below, with a pivot-like projection that lets the head turn from side to side. Together, they give the head its freedom of movement, while keeping it securely connected to the spine. The thoracic spine below the neck has 12 vertebrae. Each of these connects to a pair of ribs, forming the back portion of the rib cage. The thoracic vertebrae are larger and stronger than the cervical ones, as they must bear more weight, but their movement is more limited. This limitation is by design. The rib cage's protective role for the heart and lungs requires stability over flexibility. Beneath the thoracic region is the lumbar spine, made of 5 large vertebrae. These are the strongest of all, supporting the weight of the upper body and enduring the stresses of lifting, bending, and twisting. The lumbar spine has a deep inward curve that helps maintain balance and distribute weight efficiently. Though strong, this region is also prone to strain, a reminder of the daily demands placed upon it. At the base of the spine lies the sacrum, a triangular block of 5 fused vertebrae. The sacrum forms the back wall of the pelvis, locking into place between the hip bones. Below it is the coccyx, or tailbone, a small structure of 3 to 5 fused vertebrae. Though it no longer serves the tail function it once did in distant evolutionary ancestors, it still provides attachment points for ligaments and muscles of the pelvic floor. Between each pair of vertebrae lies an intervertebral disc, a soft, cushioning pad made of tough outer cartilage and a gel-like inner core. These discs act as shock absorbers, protecting the bones from impact as we walk, run, or jump. They also allow a small degree of movement between vertebrae, adding to the spine's flexibility. Over time, these discs can lose moisture and height, a natural part of aging that may slightly shorten stature and reduce flexibility. Running through the center of the spine is the vertebral canal, a hollow space formed by the stacking of each vertebra's protective arch. Within this canal lies the spinal cord, a vital bundle of nerves. From the spinal cord, nerve roots branch out at each level, passing through openings between the vertebrae to reach every region of the body. These nerves carry sensory information to the brain and motor commands from the brain to the muscles. In this way, the spine is both a structural support and a communications highway. The spine's flexibility comes from the combination of movable joints, elastic ligaments, and the cushioning discs. Together, they allow the spine to bend forward and backward, tilt side to side, and rotate along its axis. Yet this flexibility is carefully balanced with stability, a harmony that allows us to move freely without endangering the delicate spinal cord within. Ligaments run along the length of the spine, binding the vertebrae together and limiting excessive movement. Muscles attach to the spine as well, some running its entire length, others connecting only to a few vertebrae. These muscles work constantly, even when we think we are still, making tiny adjustments to keep us balanced and upright. The spine is deeply responsive to the way we live. It adapts to patterns of movement and posture, strengthening with regular use or weakening with prolonged inactivity. Weight-bearing activity encourages the vertebrae and surrounding muscles to remain strong. Poor posture, repetitive strain, or lack of movement can place uneven stress on the spine, gradually affecting its alignment and comfort. Even in rest, the spine is never truly still. Breathing causes subtle motion in the thoracic region as the rib cage expands and contracts. The smallest shifts in position while lying down change the distribution of pressure on the vertebrae and discs. This gentle responsiveness is part of the spine's living nature. It is always engaged in supporting and protecting us. In early life, the spine begins as a soft, flexible column, much of it cartilage. The natural curves develop gradually. The thoracic and sacral curves are present from birth, while the cervical curve forms when an infant first lifts its head, and the lumbar curve appears when the child begins to stand and walk. These curves are a record of growth, a silent timeline built into the body. Throughout adulthood, the spine continues its quiet work, a combination of strength, flexibility, and protection. Even as the decades pass, its basic design remains remarkably effective, balancing our upright stance with the ability to bend, twist, and reach. As you picture your own spine now, imagine it as a tall, graceful column within you. See the curves flowing gently from head to pelvis. Picture each vertebra stacked neatly, each disc cushioning the space between. Imagine the spinal cord within, carrying messages faster than thought, linking every sensation, every movement, to the center of your mind. In the next part of our journey, we will remain within the axial skeleton but expand outward to the rib cage, the shelter of breath. There we will see how bone and cartilage together form a protective yet flexible cage for the heart and lungs. But for now, let your awareness rest on the spine, steadfast, supple, and always working quietly to hold you upright. 7. The rib cage, shelter for breath. From the sturdy column of the spine, our journey moves outward and forward into a structure both protective and gently flexible, the rib cage. This bony enclosure wraps around the chest like a graceful archway, sheltering the heart, lungs, and other delicate organs. It is a house for breath, a shield for life, and yet, unlike stone walls, it can move, expanding and contracting with every inhalation and exhalation. The rib cage is made of 12 pairs of ribs, the sternum at the front and the thoracic vertebrae at the back. Together they form an open, rounded cage. From behind, each rib curves forward from its attachment point on the spine. The upper ribs sweep in a gentle arc, shorter and more horizontal. The lower ribs slope downward, longer and more open, giving the rib cage its distinctive shape. The ribs are not all alike. The first 7 pairs are called true ribs. Each of these attaches directly to the sternum through its own strip of cartilage, forming a secure and flexible connection. The next 3 pairs are false ribs. They do not connect directly to the sternum. Instead, their cartilage joins with the rib above, creating a shared pathway to the front of the chest. The last 2 pairs are known as floating ribs. They have no connection to the sternum at all, their front ends free, while their back ends anchor to the spine. These floating ribs protect the upper kidneys and give extra flexibility to the lower rib cage. The sternum itself, sometimes called the breastbone, is a flat, elongated bone running down the center of the chest. It has three parts: the manubrium at the top, the body in the middle, and the xiphoid process at the tip. The manubrium meets the collarbones and the first pair of ribs, forming the uppermost connection between the rib cage and the shoulders. The xiphoid process, though small and often cartilaginous in youth, serves as an anchor point for muscles of the abdomen and diaphragm. Between the ribs lies a softer material, the intercostal muscles. These layers of muscle help hold the ribs in place and assist in breathing. When you inhale, the intercostal muscles contract, lifting and spreading the ribs outward, making space for the lungs to fill with air. When you exhale, they relax, allowing the ribs to fall back into place, helping air leave the lungs. The ribs are connected to the sternum and to each other by costal cartilage. This cartilage is firm yet flexible, allowing the rib cage to move slightly with each breath. Without it, the chest would be a rigid cage, unable to expand and contract easily. This flexibility is essential not only for breathing, but for bending, twisting, and absorbing the subtle movements of daily life. The rib cage's primary role is protection. The heart rests slightly left of center, cradled deep within, and the lungs fill most of the remaining space. The large blood vessels that feed the body pass through this shielded region. Even parts of the liver, spleen, and stomach lie partly under the lower ribs. This bony and cartilaginous armor guards against accidental blows, falls, and compressions that could otherwise harm these vital organs. And yet, the rib cage must also remain light and mobile. The bones are thin and curved, strong enough to absorb shocks, but light enough to move with ease. The arrangement of ribs, cartilage, and joints gives the cage its living flexibility. It is a structure built not to resist movement, but to flow with it. The shape of the rib cage also plays a role in posture and balance. It rests on the upper portion of the spine and connects with the shoulder girdle, helping to distribute weight evenly. The rib cage's rounded form helps keep the center of gravity stable, whether we are sitting, standing, or moving. During breathing, the rib cage works closely with the diaphragm, the broad, dome-shaped muscle beneath it. As the diaphragm contracts, it flattens downward, drawing air into the lungs. At the same time, the intercostal muscles lift the ribs outward, expanding the chest cavity in all directions. The result is a smooth, quiet rhythm, chest rising, chest falling that continues without pause throughout life. From birth to old age, the rib cage changes subtly. In newborns, the ribs are more horizontal, giving the chest a rounder shape. As the child grows, the ribs angle more steeply downward, and the rib cage elongates. In later years, the cartilage may become stiffer, reducing flexibility. But even then, the rib cage continues to do its work, expanding just enough for each breath, offering steady protection with every movement. The rib cage also plays a quiet role in voice and speech. As air is pushed from the lungs, the shape and movement of the rib cage influence how steadily the breath flows. Singers, wind instrument players, and public speakers often train their awareness of rib cage movement, learning to control the expansion and release of the chest to produce a steady, supported voice. Even in stillness, the rib cage moves. With each inhalation, it opens slightly, like the petals of a flower unfurling. With each exhalation, it folds inward again. The motion is subtle, a living rhythm that continues day and night, whether we notice it or not. It is the movement of life itself. You might take a moment now to sense your own rib cage. Feel the quiet rise and fall as you breathe. Imagine the ribs lifting gently, the cartilage bending slightly, the sternum moving forward as the lungs fill. Then feel the slow return, the ribs settling back, the air flowing out. This is the constant, unbroken work of your rib cage, a shelter that moves in harmony, with every breath you take. In the next part of our journey, we will move outward from the axial skeleton and into the arms, beginning with the shoulder girdle, the graceful assembly that connects the upper limbs to the body's core. There we will see how bone, joint, and muscle combine to give us the wide range of motion that lets us reach, lift, and embrace. But for now, let your awareness rest in the steady rhythm of the rib cage, the shelter for breath, the quiet keeper of the heart's beating, and the lungs' endless rise and fall. 8. The shoulder and arm bones. From the protective shelter of the rib cage, the skeleton extends outward into one of its most graceful and versatile assemblies, the shoulder and arm. Here, strength meets freedom of movement. The design is a marvel. Bones arranged not for the rigid stability of the spine, but for the wide-reaching mobility that lets us lift, carry, embrace, create, and express. The shoulder is not a single joint, but a complex network of bones, muscles, and connective tissues, forming what is called the shoulder girdle. This girdle links the arms to the axial skeleton while allowing them a remarkable range of motion. Where the hips anchor the legs with firm, weight-bearing stability, the shoulders trade some of that stability for flexibility. The result is a joint system that can move the arms in almost every direction. The clavicle, or collarbone, is one of the key bones of the shoulder girdle. Slender and gently curved, it stretches from the top of the sternum to the outer edge of the shoulder, where it meets the scapula. The clavicle acts like a supportive brace, holding the shoulder away from the chest so the arm has space to swing freely. It also absorbs and distributes forces that travel from the arm to the torso, helping to protect the deeper structures of the chest. Behind the clavicle lies the scapula, or shoulder blade. Broad, flat, and triangular, the scapula rests over the upper ribs at the back. It is not fixed rigidly in place. Instead, it glides smoothly over the rib cage, anchored and moved by layers of muscle. On the outer edge of the scapula is a shallow, rounded socket, the glenoid cavity, which receives the head of the humerus, forming the shoulder joint. This shallow design allows extraordinary range of motion, though it also means the joint relies heavily on muscles, tendons, and ligaments for stability. Extending from the shoulder joint is the humerus, the single long bone of the upper arm. Its rounded head fits neatly into the glenoid cavity, allowing the arm to rotate, lift, and swing. The shaft of the humerus is strong yet slightly curved, optimized for both strength and leverage. At its lower end, it broadens and shapes into smooth surfaces that meet the bones of the forearm at the elbow. The elbow itself is a hinge-like joint, primarily allowing the arm to bend and straighten. Yet, it is more than a simple hinge. It also allows for a twisting motion of the forearm, a rotation that turns the palm up or down. This is possible because the forearm contains two parallel bones, the radius and the ulna. The ulna lies on the inner side of the forearm, in line with the little finger. It is the longer of the two forearm bones and forms the prominent point of the elbow, known as the olecranon. The radius lies on the outer side of the forearm, in line with the thumb. Near the elbow, the radius is the smaller bone, but as it approaches the wrist, it becomes the larger of the two. The radius is the bone primarily responsible for wrist movement, pivoting around the ulna to rotate the hand. This arrangement, humerus above, radius and ulna below, gives the arm both strength and versatility. The forearm can push, pull, lift, and carry heavy loads, yet it can also turn a delicate key in a lock, thread a needle, or trace a gentle line on paper. At the lower end of the forearm lies the wrist, a small but intricate cluster of 8 carpal bones, arranged in 2 rows. These bones form a flexible yet stable base for the hand. The carpals connect to the metacarpal bones of the palm, which in turn connect to the phalanges, the finger bones. Each finger has 3 phalanges, proximal, middle, and distal, except for the thumb, which has only 2. This structure gives the hand its remarkable dexterity. The thumb, with its ability to move in opposition to the fingers, is especially significant. This movement is made possible by the unique shape of the joint at the base of the thumb and the arrangement of its muscles and tendons. It is one of the features that make the human hand capable of both delicate precision and firm grip. The bones of the shoulder and arm are supported and moved by a network of muscles and tendons. The rotator cuff muscles hold the head of the humerus securely within the shallow socket of the scapula, guiding and stabilizing shoulder motion. Larger muscles like the deltoid, pectoralis major, biceps, and triceps provide strength for lifting, pushing, pulling, and reaching. Despite their strength, the shoulder and arm remain vulnerable to overuse and strain, a natural result of their freedom of movement. Unlike the hip, whose deep socket cradles the thigh bone securely, the shallow shoulder socket leaves the joint more exposed. But this is the trade-less structural confinement in exchange for the ability to move the arm in a wide, sweeping arc. From an evolutionary perspective, this mobility has been a great advantage. It allows us to climb, throw, craft tools, and communicate through gesture. In daily life, it lets us reach for a shelf, catch ourselves during a fall, or simply wrap our arms around someone we love. When you picture your own shoulders and arms now, you might imagine the clavicles arching gracefully from your sternum to your shoulders, the scapulae gliding silently over your back, the humerus extending down to the elbow, and the radius and ulna running to the wrist. See the carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges forming the intricate structure of the hand. You might also feel an awareness of how naturally these bones work together, how the simple act of lifting a cup or turning a doorknob engages the clavicle, scapula, humerus, radius, and ulna, each moving in small harmony. How your hands built on the bones of the wrist, palm, and fingers carry out your thoughts in motion. In the next part of our journey, we will turn our attention downward to the lower half of the body's frame, beginning with the pelvis, the foundation of our upright stance. There, strength and stability take center stage, supporting the weight of the body and linking the spine to the powerful bones of the legs. But for now, rest in the awareness of your shoulders and arms, the graceful branches of your body's living architecture, reaching outward with quiet strength and endless possibility. 9. The pelvis, foundation of the frame. Beneath the tall column of the spine, at the very center of the body's weight and balance, lies the pelvis, the strong, bowl-shaped foundation upon which the upper body rests and from which the lower limbs rise. It is a structure of remarkable strength and stability, yet it carries within it a subtle grace. It is the bridge between the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton, the meeting place where the solidity of the trunk flows into the power of the legs. The pelvis is not a single bone, but a ring formed from several bones joined together. On each side are the large, curved hip bones, known as the ossa coxae. These bones form the bulk of the pelvic structure, sweeping outward and downward to create the broad, protective basin of the pelvis. At the back, the two hip bones meet the sacrum, the triangular bone at the base of the spine which locks the pelvis into place. Below the sacrum, the small coccyx, or tailbone, completes the ring. Each hip bone is itself a fusion of three bones, the ilium, ischium, and pubis. In early life, these are separate, joined by cartilage. During adolescence, they gradually fuse into a single solid structure. The ilium is the broad, flaring portion at the top, easily felt when you place your hands on your hips. The ischium forms the lower, back part, the portion that bears weight when sitting. The pubis forms the front portion, meeting its counterpart from the opposite hip bone at the pubic symphysis, a joint cushioned by cartilage that allows slight movement and absorbs shock. At the sides of the pelvis are deep, cup-of-shaped sockets called acetabula. These are the hip sockets, where the rounded heads of the femurs, the thigh bones, fit snugly. The depth of the acetabulum provides stability, holding the femur securely in place, while still allowing a wide range of motion at the hip joint. This combination of strength and movement is essential. The hips must support the weight of the body during standing and walking, yet also allow the legs to move freely in many directions. The pelvis has several important roles. First and foremost, it supports and transfers the weight of the upper body to the legs when standing, walking, or running. This transfer must be smooth and balanced to prevent strain on the spine or lower limbs. The pelvis also serves as a sturdy anchor point for many of the body's most powerful muscles, those that move the thighs, rotate the hips, and stabilize the trunk. Another role of the pelvis is protection. The broad basin it forms shields organs deep within the lower abdomen, including the bladder, portions of the intestines, and in females, the reproductive organs. This protection is enhanced by the way the pelvis narrows toward the base, creating a bony cradle for these structures. In terms of shape, the pelvis varies somewhat between individuals, and there are distinct differences between the typical male and female pelvis. The female pelvis is generally wider, with a larger, more circular pelvic inlet and a broader angle between the pubic bones. These adaptations provide space for childbirth, allowing the passage of a newborn through the birth canal. The male pelvis tends to be narrower and taller, with a more hardivish-shaped pelvic inlet, optimized for strength and bipedal efficiency. The pelvis is also deeply involved in posture and movement. It forms the base of the spine's curves, tilting slightly forward in most individuals. This tilt helps maintain the balance of the upper body over the legs. The position of the pelvis influences the alignment of the spine, hips, knees, and feet. Small shifts in pelvic position can change the way the entire body moves and bears weight. When walking, the pelvis is in constant gentle motion. As one leg steps forward, the hip on that side drops slightly, while the opposite side rises. This rhythmic tilt, subtle and almost unnoticeable, helps keep the movement smooth and energy efficient. The pelvis also rotates slightly with each step, allowing the legs to swing more freely and contributing to the natural sway of the arms. Inside the pelvis lies the pelvic floor, a group of muscles, ligaments, and connective tissue stretching like a hammock between the pubis and the coccyx. This structure supports the pelvic organs from below and plays a role in maintaining continence, aiding in childbirth, and stabilizing the pelvis during movement. Though not made of bone, the pelvic floor works closely with the bony pelvis, reinforcing its protective role. During life, the pelvis is not static. In infancy and childhood, the bones are still soft and the joints more flexible. As we grow, the pelvis strengthens and takes on its adult shape. In older age, the joints may stiffen and bone density may decrease, but the basic design remains remarkably enduring. From an evolutionary perspective, the human pelvis reflects the unique demands of upright walking. Compared to our primate relatives, it is shorter and broader, helping to keep the body's center of gravity over the feet. This adaptation allows us to stand and walk efficiently, though it also creates the challenge of fitting childbirth through a relatively narrow space, a balance between mobility and reproduction that has shaped human evolution. The pelvis also plays a role in absorbing shock. When the feet strike the ground, the impact travels upward through the legs. The curved structure of the pelvis helps to distribute this force into the spine and across the hips, reducing strain on any one part. You might take a moment now to picture your own pelvis, the wide ilium curving outward beneath your waist, the sturdy ischium beneath you when you sit, the pubic bones meeting at the front, and the deep acetabula holding the heads of your femurs. Imagine how it carries the weight of your body, how it steadies your movements, how it protects the organs within its cradle. In the next part of our journey, we will follow the line of the femur downward into the leg and foot, exploring the long, weight-bearing bones that carry us forward through life. But for now, You might rest in the awareness of your pelvis, your body's strong foundation, a steady bridge between the upright spine and the grounded strength of the legs. 10. The leg and foot bones. From the strong basin of the pelvis, the skeleton extends downward into the legs. Two powerful columns that carry the body's weight, propel it forward, and keep it balanced against the pull of gravity. The design of the legs is one of strength, endurance, and stability, yet it is also one of subtle flexibility. With every step we take, the bones of the legs and feet work together in a quiet choreography, absorbing impact, supporting movement, and adapting to the changing ground beneath us. The largest bone of the leg, and indeed the largest bone in the human body, is the femur, or thigh bone. It stretches from the hip to the knee, slightly curved to better withstand the stresses of movement. At its upper end, the femur has a rounded head that fits snugly into the acetabulum of the pelvis, forming the hip joint. This ball-and-socket joint allows the leg to move forward, backward, outward, and inward, and even to rotate. A narrow neck connects the head to the shaft, angling the femur inward, so the knees rest closer together, a feature that helps keep the body's weight balanced over the feet. The shaft of the femur is dense and strong, able to bear the body's weight with each step. At its lower end, it widens into two rounded condyles that meet the bones of the lower leg at the knee. The knee joint, the largest joint in the body, is a complex hinge, allowing the leg to bend and straighten, while also permitting a small degree of rotation when the knee is flexed. In front of the knee lies the patella, or kneecap, a small, triangular bone embedded within the tendon of the quadriceps muscle. The patella acts as a shield for the knee joint, protecting it from direct impact. It also serves as a lever, increasing the efficiency of the quadriceps when extending the leg. Below the knee, the leg continues as two parallel bones, the tibia and the fibula. The tibia, or shin bone, is the larger and stronger of the two, bearing most of the body's weight. Its upper end forms the lower part of the knee joint, while its lower end helps form the ankle. The fibula runs along the outer side of the tibia. It is slender and does not bear significant weight, but it serves as an attachment site for muscles and helps stabilize the ankle. The tibia's front surface lies close to the skin, which is why the shin is so sensitive to knocks and bumps. The fibula, tucked slightly behind and to the side, is better protected by muscle. Together, these two bones form a sturdy yet flexible frame for the lower leg. At the base of the leg is the ankle joint, where the tibia and fibula meet the talus, one of the bones of the foot. The ankle allows the foot to point downward, pull upward, and tilt slightly from side to side, adapting to the contours of the ground. The foot itself is a marvel of intricate design, made of 26 bones arranged into three main regions: the tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. The tarsals form the rear part of the foot. The largest is the calcaneus, or heel bone, which takes the brunt of the body's weight when standing and walking. Above it sits the talus, which links the foot to the ankle joint. Other tarsal bones, including the navicular, cuboid, and three cuneiforms, form the arch and midsection of the foot. Extending forward from the tarsals are the metatarsal bones, 5 long bones that form the framework of the forefoot. These bones connect to the phalanges, or toe bones. Each toe has 3 phalanges, proximal, middle, and distal, except for the big toe, which has only 2. The toes play a role in balance and in pushing the body forward during walking or running. One of the foot's most remarkable features is its system of arches. There are 3 main arches: the medial longitudinal arch running along the inside of the foot, the lateral longitudinal arch along the outside, and the transverse arch running across the midfoot. These arches distribute weight evenly, absorb shock, and provide a spring-like effect when moving. The shape of the arches is maintained by the arrangement of bones, ligaments, and tendons, as well as by the muscles of the foot and lower leg. The foot must be both strong and adaptable. It supports the body's weight for long periods, yet it also needs to adjust instantly to uneven ground, change direction, and cushion each step. The bones of the foot, working with joints, ligaments, and muscles, accomplish this with ease so seamlessly that we rarely notice the complexity beneath us. From a functional perspective, the leg and foot are built for bipedal movement. The long femur provides leverage for walking and running. The arrangement of the tibia and fibula offers strength with controlled flexibility. The structure of the foot allows both firm support and responsive movement. Together, they give humans the ability to travel long distances on two legs, freeing the arms for other tasks. Over the course of a lifetime, the bones of the legs and feet carry us thousands of miles. They endure countless steps, jumps, and shifts in position. They adapt to changes in body weight, posture, and activity. And though they may sometimes tire or ache, their basic design remains resilient, continuing to support and move us year after year. If you picture your own legs and feet now, you might imagine the femurs extending downward from your hips, strong and slightly curved. See the knees as hinges, the patella resting in front like a small protective shield. Picture the tibia and fibula running to your ankles, and the talus linking to the intricate structure of the foot. See the heel bone, the arches, the toes all working together with each step you take. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the deeper nature of bone itself, its composition, its layers, and the remarkable balance of hardness and flexibility that gives it both strength and resilience. But for now, rest in the awareness of your legs and feet, the pillars that hold you, the foundation that moves you steadily through the world. 11. Bone composition and strength. To understand the skeleton fully, we must look closer, much closer, beyond the familiar shapes of skull, spine, arms, and legs, into the very substance of bone itself. From the outside, bone appears simple, smooth, hard, and pale. But beneath that surface lies a complex architecture, a living material perfectly balanced between strength and flexibility. Bone is a composite tissue, part mineral, part organic, and each part serves a vital purpose. The mineral portion, primarily calcium phosphate in the form of tiny crystals called hydroxyapatite, gives bone its hardness and ability to bear weight. The organic portion, made largely of the protein collagen, provides resilience and a subtle flexibility that prevents bone from being brittle. Together, these components create a material that is both strong and slightly yielding, a combination few artificial materials can match. The surface of most bones is covered by a thin, fibrous membrane called the periosteum. This layer contains blood vessels, nerves, and bone-forming cells. It nourishes the bone and serves as an anchor point for tendons and ligaments. In young, growing bones, the periosteum is especially active, thick with cells that contribute to bone growth and repair. Beneath the periosteum lies compact bone, also called cortical bone. This is the dense, solid layer that gives bone its smooth outer surface. Compact bone is incredibly strong, yet it is not a uniform block of material. It is arranged in concentric rings around tiny canals that carry blood vessels and nerves, a pattern known as the Haversian system or osteon. These microscopic cylinders run parallel to the bone's length, allowing it to withstand great compressive forces. Inside the compact bone, especially toward the ends of long bones, lies spongy bone, or cancellous bone. This inner structure looks a little like a honeycomb, with a network of thin plates called trabeculae. These trabeculae are arranged along lines of stress, strengthening the bone exactly where it is needed while keeping it light. The spaces between them are often filled with bone marrow. Bone marrow comes in two forms: red marrow and yellow marrow. Red marrow is responsible for producing new blood cells, red blood cells that carry oxygen, white blood cells that fight infection, and platelets that help clot blood. Yellow marrow, found mostly in the central cavities of long bones in adults, is rich in fat and can serve as an energy reserve. In certain conditions, yellow marrow can even convert back into red marrow to boost blood cell production. Bone's strength comes not only from its composition, but also from its ability to renew itself. This process, called bone remodeling, is a constant cycle of breakdown and rebuilding. Specialized cells called osteoclasts dissolve old or damaged bone, releasing minerals into the bloodstream. At the same time, osteoblasts build new bone, secreting collagen and promoting mineralization. This cycle ensures that bone stays strong and adapts to the stresses placed upon it. The balance between building and breakdown is influenced by many factors: physical activity, nutrition, hormones, and even the pull of gravity. Weight-bearing exercises and everyday movement encourage bones to maintain or increase their density. In contrast, lack of movement or prolonged weightlessness, as in space travel, can lead to a decrease in bone mass. Calcium and vitamin D are especially important for bone health. Calcium is the primary mineral stored in bone, and vitamin D helps the body absorb it efficiently. Without adequate calcium, the body will draw from its bone reserves to maintain the proper calcium level in the blood, gradually weakening the skeleton. Other minerals, such as phosphorus, magnesium, and fluoride, also contribute to bone's structural integrity. Hormones, too, play a quiet but powerful role. In childhood and adolescence, growth hormone and sex hormones stimulate rapid bone growth. In adulthood, hormones help regulate the balance between formation and resorption. In later years, declining levels of certain hormones can tip the balance toward bone loss, making the skeleton more fragile. Bone structure is remarkably efficient. It is not overbuilt. Every part serves a purpose. Compact bone provides resistance to bending and compression, while spongy bone reduces weight without sacrificing strength. Trabeculae align themselves with the forces they encounter, reinforcing the bone in the most economical way possible. This adaptability means that bones change subtly over time, thickening where stress is frequent, thinning where it is absent. Even in its smallest details, bone reflects this harmony of strength and lightness. Under a microscope, the collagen fibers in bone are arranged in alternating layers. Each layer's fibers oriented at a different angle. This crisscross pattern resists cracking and distributes forces evenly through the bone. The hydroxyapatite crystals are tiny, smaller than the wavelength of light, which makes the mineral component both strong and resistant to fracture. When bone is injured, its capacity for repair is another sign of its living nature. After a fracture, blood vessels in the bone and periosteum rupture, forming a clot. Cells from the periosteum and bone marrow move into the area, creating a soft callus of cartilage and fibrous tissue. Over weeks, this is replaced by hard bone, which is then remodeled over months to restore the bone's original shape and strength. It is worth noting that bone is not only structural, it is also a reservoir for minerals. About 99% of the body's calcium is stored in bone, along with significant amounts of phosphorus and other minerals. These reserves can be drawn upon when needed, helping to maintain stable levels in the blood for vital functions such as nerve transmission, muscle contraction, and blood clotting. When we think of bone, it is easy to picture something lifeless and static, but in truth, bone is a dynamic, responsive tissue. It senses the forces acting upon it and adjusts accordingly. It responds to injury with repair. It serves not only as the body's framework, but also as a chemical storehouse and a blood cell factory. You might imagine now the bone beneath your skin, the compact layer, smooth and dense, the spongy lattice inside, light and strong, the marrow within, quietly producing blood cells. Picture the tiny osteons, the delicate trabeculae. the endless microscopic activity that keeps your skeleton alive and resilient. In the next part of our journey, we will look even more closely at this living tissue, at the cells that build, maintain, and reshape bone, and the quiet teamwork that keeps the skeleton strong through every stage of life. But for now, you might rest in the thought of bone's perfect balance, hard yet flexible, strong yet light, steadfast yet always renewing itself. 12. The silent work of bone cells. To truly understand bone as a living tissue, we must go deeper than its structure and composition. We must look into its smallest inhabitants, the living cells that work without rest to shape, maintain, and renew the skeleton. Though we cannot see them with the naked eye, their quiet labor sustains the strength of every bone in the body. There are three main kinds of bone cells, each with a distinct role: osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteocytes. They work in a delicate balance, like members of a well-rehearsed orchestra, each contributing their part to the harmony of bone health. The osteoblasts are the builders. They are responsible for creating new bone tissue. Found along the surface of bones, osteoblasts secrete collagen, the flexible protein fibers that form the organic framework of bone. They also encourage the deposition of minerals, especially calcium and phosphate, into this framework, a process called mineralization. The result is new bone matrix, firm and strong. When an osteoblast becomes surrounded by the very matrix it has helped create, it changes its form and its name. It becomes an osteocyte, a mature bone cell. Osteocytes are not builders in the active sense, but they are far from idle. Each osteocyte occupies a small space called a lacuna and extends tiny, thread-like processes through microscopic channels called canaliculi. Through these channels, osteocytes connect with one another, forming a vast network of communication. This network allows osteocytes to sense changes in mechanical stress, for example, increased use of a bone through exercise or decreased use through rest. They detect even the smallest shifts in strain and send signals to osteoblasts or osteoclasts to adjust bone formation or resorption. In this way, osteocytes act as the bone's internal sensors, ensuring that bone is reinforced where it is needed and streamlined where it is not. Balancing the builders are the osteoclasts, the recyclers. These large multinucleated cells are responsible for breaking down bone tissue in a process known as resorption. By releasing acids and enzymes, osteoclasts dissolve the mineral component of bone and digest the collagen matrix. The minerals released into the bloodstream can then be used elsewhere in the body. This breakdown might seem destructive, but it is essential. Without osteoclasts, old or damaged bone would accumulate, becoming brittle and prone to fracture. Bone must be renewed constantly, not just repaired after injury. Resorption clears the way for fresh bone tissue laid down by osteoblasts, keeping the skeleton strong and resilient. The interplay between osteoblasts and osteoclasts is known as bone remodeling. It happens continuously, even in a healthy adult skeleton. In areas under high mechanical stress, such as the femur in an active runner or the dominant arm of a tennis player, osteoblasts are signaled to increase bone formation, strengthening the structure. In areas under less demand, osteoclasts may reduce bone mass slightly to conserve resources. This remodeling also serves to repair microdamage, the tiny cracks and strains that occur naturally with everyday movement. Left unchecked, such damage could accumulate over time. But through the combined efforts of osteoclasts and osteoblasts, these areas are identified, broken down, and rebuilt stronger than before. The coordination of these cells is influenced by chemical signals within the body. Hormones such as parathyroid hormone, calcitonin, and vitamin D regulate calcium levels and influence the activity of bone cells. Growth factors and cytokines, small signaling proteins, also guide when and where bone is formed or resorbed. This network of signals ensures that bone remains in balance, neither too dense nor too fragile. In youth, the activity of osteoblasts generally outweighs that of osteoclasts, leading to a net gain in bone mass. This is how bones grow longer and stronger during childhood and adolescence. By early adulthood, the balance evens out, with bone formation and resorption occurring at roughly the same rate. In later years, osteoclast activity may begin to exceed osteoblast activity, leading to gradual bone loss. This natural shift underscores the importance of maintaining bone health throughout life. Within the marrow spaces of spongy bone, other types of cells play supporting roles. Stem cells here can differentiate into osteoblasts when new bone formation is needed. The marrow environment also supports cells that form cartilage and connective tissue, which sometimes act as scaffolds during bone repair. During fracture healing, these bone cells work together in an especially coordinated way. Osteoclasts clear away damaged tissue. Osteoblasts lay down new collagen framework. Osteocytes guide the process, sensing the stresses on the healing bone and directing reinforcement where it is most needed. Over weeks and months, the repaired bone gradually takes on the same structure and strength as it had before the injury. Even in the absence of injury, the bone cells are never at rest. If you were to freeze time and look closely at any section of bone, you would find areas being resorbed and rebuilt side by side. This constant renewal is part of what allows the skeleton to last a lifetime. The silent work of these cells is a reminder that the skeleton is not fixed, but dynamic. It is alive, responsive, and in constant conversation with the rest of the body. The building, sensing, and recycling that occur within each bone happen quietly, without our awareness. Yet they are as essential as the beating of the heart or the rhythm of the breath. You might imagine now the unseen life within your own bones, the osteoblasts lining the surface, adding strength, the osteocytes deep inside, sensing strain, the osteoclasts, patiently clearing away the old to make room for the new. This microscopic community works in perfect cooperation, sustaining the architecture that holds you upright and allows you to move through the world. In the next part of our journey, we will look outward once again to the places where bones meet, the joints that bring movement to the skeleton. There we will see how cartilage, ligaments, and synovial fluid keep the bones moving smoothly, turning the skeleton from a fixed frame into a living instrument of motion. But for now, rest in the awareness of the quiet workers within the tireless bone cells, whose patient labor keeps your skeleton strong and whole. 13 joints, where bones meet in harmony. The skeleton is often thought of as a rigid framework, a structure of fixed shapes holding the body upright. But if it were only that, we would be motionless, locked in place like a statue. What transforms the skeleton from a static frame into a living instrument of movement are the joints, the points where bones meet and interact. A joint is not just a meeting point. It is a carefully engineered connection. Some joints allow wide flowing movements. Others permit only a slight shift, and some allow no movement at all. Together, they give the skeleton its balance of stability and flexibility, strength and freedom. There are several ways to classify joints, but one of the simplest is by the amount of movement they allow. Immovable joints, such as the sutures of the skull, hold bones together firmly for protection. Slightly movable joints, such as those between the vertebrae, permit limited motion while maintaining strength. Freely movable joints, also called synovial joints, are the most versatile, allowing a broad range of motion in the arms, legs, and other mobile parts of the body. It is the synovial joints that give the body much of its grace and adaptability. These joints share a common design. The ends of the bones are covered with smooth articular cartilage, which cushions them and reduces friction. The joint is enclosed in a capsule lined with a delicate synovial membrane, This membrane produces synovial fluid, a clear, slippery liquid that nourishes the cartilage and allows the bones to glide past one another with minimal resistance. Around the joint, strong ligaments connect bone to bone, holding the joint steady and preventing excessive movement that could cause injury. Tendons, which attach muscles to bone, often cross the joint, transmitting the pull of the muscle to move the bone. Together, cartilage, fluid, ligaments, and tendons create a system that allows movement while guarding against damage. Synovial joints come in many forms, each shaped for a particular type of motion. Ball and day socket joints, such as the shoulder and hip, allow movement in nearly every direction: forward, backward, sideways, rotation, making them the most mobile of all joints. Hinge joints, like the elbow and knee, bend and straighten in a single plane, much like the hinge of a door. Pivot joints, such as the one between the first two cervical vertebrae, allow rotation, letting you turn your head from side to side. Gliding joints, found between small bones of the wrist and ankle, permit bones to slide past each other in various directions. Condyloid joints, such as those at the base of the fingers, allow movement in two planes: flexion and extension, side horv, side motion, but not rotation. Saddle joints, like the one at the base of the thumb, combine stability with an impressive range of motion, enabling the thumb's unique ability to oppose the fingers. Not all joints are synovial. Some are cartilaginous joints, where bones are connected entirely by cartilage. These joints, such as those between the ribs and sternum, or between the vertebrae, provide strength with limited movement. Others are fibrous joints, held together by dense connective tissue, such as the immovable sutures of the skull, or the fibrous connection between the tibia and fibula in the lower leg. The harmony of the joints lies in their balance. Too much movement without stability would leave the skeleton weak and vulnerable. Too much stability without movement would make it rigid and unyielding. Each joint finds its own equilibrium, shaped by its purpose. The hip joint sacrifices a little mobility compared to the shoulder in exchange for greater stability to support the body's weight. The knee joint focuses on powerful hinge-like movement for walking and running, while relying on surrounding ligaments and muscles for side-to-side control. Joints also have their own quiet rhythms. Even at rest, many joints contain a thin film of synovial fluid, keeping the cartilage nourished. With movement, the pressure within the joint changes, helping circulate this fluid over the cartilage's surface. In this way, gentle motion is a kind of nourishment for the joints. It keeps them supple and healthy. Over a lifetime, joints experience countless cycles of movement and rest. They adapt to the patterns of our daily lives, strengthening with regular use, becoming stiff or less flexible if left idle. Healthy joints rely on the interplay between movement and care. Too little movement, and they may lose flexibility. Too much strain, and they may wear down prematurely. Even the joints that allow little or no motion serve important roles. The immovable joints of the skull keep the brain safe. The slightly movable joints of the spine provide stability for upright posture. The more mobile joints are supported by a surrounding network of muscles that help absorb shocks and control precise movements. Injury or strain can disrupt the harmony of a joint. Damage to cartilage, ligaments, or the joint capsule can lead to pain, instability, or reduced range of motion. Yet the body often responds with repair and adaptation, reinforcing the joint where possible. With gentle care, many joints can continue to serve faithfully even after years of use. You might imagine your own joints now: the knees bending smoothly, the hips rotating in their deep sockets, the shoulders lifting and circling, the wrists flexing and turning. Picture the smooth cartilage at each joint surface, the clear synovial fluid allowing motion without friction, the ligaments holding everything in place. The elegance of the skeleton is not just in the shapes of its bones, but in the way those bones meet and move together. The joints are the points of connection, the hinges and pivots that turn the skeleton into a living, moving frame. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how the skeleton works in concert with the muscles to create movement, how the levers of bone, powered by the pull of muscle, bring the body's motions to life. But for now, you might rest in the awareness of your joints, the quiet meeting places of bone and motion, where strength and flexibility exist in perfect balance. 14. The role of the skeleton in movement. The skeleton alone is a beautiful framework, but without the power of the muscles, it would remain still, a silent structure without motion. And yet, without the skeleton, the muscles would have no firm foundation to work against, no levers to move, no stable points from which to pull. Movement arises from their partnership, the bones providing structure, the muscles providing force, the joints allowing the whole system to flow in a coordinated dance. In essence, the skeleton serves as a system of levers. A lever is a rigid bar that moves around a fixed point, called a fulcrum. In the body, each bone acts as a lever, each joint as a fulcrum, and the muscles supply the pulling force. This arrangement allows small muscular contractions to produce large, precise movements. There are 3 general types of levers in the human body. First-class levers place the fulcrum between the force and the load, like the nodding motion of the head, where the atlanto-occipital joint between skull and spine acts as the fulcrum. Second-class levers have the load between the fulcrum and the force, as in standing on tiptoe, where the ball of the foot is the fulcrum, the body's weight is the load, and the calf muscles provide the force. Third-class levers place the force between the fulcrum and the load, the most common in the body, as in bending the elbow, where the elbow joint is the fulcrum, the biceps provide the force, and the hand and forearm are the load. This lever system allows efficiency, speed, and versatility. It explains how a relatively small muscle in the forearm can swing a tennis racket, or how the large muscles of the thigh can propel the body upward in a jump. Tendons connect muscles to bones, transmitting the pull of the muscle to the lever it moves. Because tendons are strong, flexible cords of collagen, they can withstand the forces of repeated movement without stretching significantly. This strength ensures that the force from the muscle's contraction is applied directly to the bone, moving the joint in a predictable way. The joints of the skeleton determine the type and range of movement possible in each location. A ball and a socket joint, such as the shoulder, allows rotation and sweeping arcs of motion, making it suited for throwing or reaching. A hinge joint, like the knee, focuses movement into one plane, perfect for walking, running, and kicking. The spine's many joints allow the trunk to bend, twist, and absorb the subtle shifts of balance during motion. The skeleton also provides anchors for muscles that work in opposition. Muscles do not push, they pull. When one muscle contracts to move a bone in one direction, its opposing partner contracts to pull the bone back. This system of agonist and antagonist muscles relies on the skeleton's fixed points of attachment. Without these anchors, movement would lack precision and control. Consider walking. As one leg swings forward, the hip joint allows flexion, the knee bends slightly, and the ankle adjusts for ground clearance. The pelvis tilts just enough to keep the stride smooth, and the spine shifts subtly to maintain balance. Each movement depends on the cooperation of skeleton and muscle. Without the structure of the bones, the muscles would collapse inward. Without the muscles, the bones would stand in stillness. In more powerful movements, such as jumping, the skeleton plays a role in force amplification. The long bones of the legs act as levers. The pelvis provides a stable base, and the joints direct the motion efficiently upward. The arches of the feet store and release energy, like springs, to help propel the body. The skeleton also shapes posture, which in turn influences movement. The curves of the spine, the tilt of the pelvis, and the alignment of the legs all determine how force is transferred through the body. A well-aligned skeleton allows movement with minimal strain, while poor alignment can place uneven stress on joints and muscles. In activities requiring fine control, playing a musical instrument, writing, painting, the smaller bones of the hands and wrists become the focus. Here, the skeleton's precision is on display. Carpals and metacarpals form a stable, yet mobile base, while the phalanges articulate in multiple planes for delicate adjustments. The same principles of levers and fulcrums apply, simply on a smaller scale. Even breathing is a coordinated act of skeleton and muscle. The ribcage expands and contracts through the action of intercostal muscles, lifting and lowering the ribs, while the sternum tilts slightly forward. The spine's flexibility allows subtle adjustments to chest volume, and the pelvis remains stable to anchor the movement of the diaphragm. The design of the skeleton for movement is not only about power, it is also about efficiency. Bones are shaped to reduce unnecessary weight while retaining strength. The hollow medullary cavities of long bones lighten the load without sacrificing structural integrity. Joints are placed for optimal leverage, minimizing the muscular effort needed for everyday tasks. Throughout life, movement itself helps maintain the skeleton. Weight-bearing activities signal osteocytes deep within the bone to strengthen the areas under stress. This is why regular, gentle activity keeps bones dense and resilient, while long periods of immobility can lead to bone loss. The skeleton responds to movement as much as it enables it. You might imagine now your own skeleton in motion, the hips anchoring the legs as they step forward, the knees bending in a smooth hinge, the feet absorbing and releasing the ground's force. See the spine shifting subtly to keep balance, the shoulders rolling, the arms swinging with each step. Each motion is a conversation between structure and force, between bone and muscle. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how this living framework changes over the course of a lifetime, from the rapid growth of childhood to the steady maintenance of adulthood, and finally, to the gentle adaptations of later years. But for now, rest in the awareness that every step you take, every gesture you make, is a partnership, the skeleton providing the levers, the muscles providing the pull, together creating the graceful movements of life. 15. Bone health through life. The human skeleton is not the same at every stage of life, from the softness of infancy to the strength of adulthood, and later to the quiet adaptations of older age. Our bones move through a long and graceful journey. At every step, they respond to growth, activity, nourishment, and the subtle changes brought by time. In the earliest months of life, before birth, the skeleton is mostly cartilage, soft, flexible, and perfectly suited for rapid growth. This early framework allows the developing body to change shape as it grows, and it helps protect the child during birth. Even after a baby enters the world, much of the skeleton remains cartilaginous. The skull bones, for example, are not yet fully fused. The joints between them, called fontanelles, remain soft to allow for brain growth. As childhood unfolds, ossification, the process of turning cartilage into bone, continues. The long bones of the arms and legs lengthen at their growth plates, while new bone tissue steadily replaces cartilage. Children's bones are softer and more flexible than those of adults, which means they can bend slightly under pressure. This flexibility makes fractures less severe in many cases. By adolescence, bone growth enters a phase of remarkable speed. The growth plates are especially active, lengthening the limbs and adding height. Bones also begin to thicken, becoming stronger to handle the increasing demands of a maturing body. During this time, osteoblast activity, the building of new bone, is at its peak. Nutrition plays a vital role here. Adequate calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D are essential, as is regular weight-bearing activity that stimulates bone density. Young adulthood marks the achievement of peak bone mass. This is the point when bones are at their strongest, heaviest, and most resilient. Peak bone mass usually occurs in the late 20s, though it can vary from person to person. The bone remodeling process, the constant balance between osteoblasts building bone and osteoclasts breaking it down, is still in equilibrium. The skeleton is maintained, renewed, and kept strong through everyday activity. Throughout adulthood, bones adapt to the stresses placed upon them. A person who regularly walks, runs, or lifts will maintain denser bones than someone who is mostly sedentary. This is because bones respond to mechanical stress by reinforcing themselves, a principle known as Wolff's Law. Weight-bearing activities, even gentle ones like walking or dancing, signal bone cells to add more mineral and strengthen the internal structure. Bone health in adulthood is influenced not only by activity but also by diet, hormones, and lifestyle. Adequate protein supports the collagen framework of bone. Calcium and vitamin D remain essential for mineralization. Hormones, particularly estrogen and testosterone, help maintain the balance between bone building and breakdown. Chronic stress, smoking, or excessive alcohol can tip this balance toward bone loss. In middle age, subtle changes begin. Bone remodeling continues, but the balance may slowly shift towards slightly more resorption than formation. For women, the transition of menopause brings a noticeable change. The sharp decline in estrogen can lead to a faster rate of bone loss. For men, the process tends to be more gradual, but the same principle applies. When the signals that support bone building weaken, bones begin to lose density. In later years, bones may become lighter and more fragile, a process called osteopenia, which in some cases may progress to osteoporosis. This does not happen overnight. It is the result of decades of gradual change. The spongy bone in particular loses some of its inner trabeculae, and compact bone may thin. The structure remains the same, but the strength is reduced. Despite these changes, bones remain responsive to care at every age. Gentle strength training, balance exercises, and regular walking can all help maintain bone density. Adequate calcium, vitamin D, and protein continue to be important. Posture and alignment also play a greater role as the body adapts to its new balance. The spine's curves may become more pronounced. The rib cage may tilt slightly forward, and the pelvis may shift to maintain stability. The skeleton is not only about strength, it is about adaptation. In older adulthood, this adaptation often focuses on stability and protection. The joints may become less flexible as cartilage thins. Muscles around the skeleton become more important for support. Bone remodeling still occurs, but at a slower pace, prioritizing repair and maintenance over growth. Fractures, when they occur in older age, can take longer to heal, yet the same processes are at work as in youth. Osteoclasts clear away damaged bone. Osteoblasts lay down new tissue, and over time the structure is restored. Healing may be slower, but it remains possible. Bone health is a lifelong story. It is shaped by the choices we make, how we move, what we eat, how we care for our bodies, and by the rhythms of growth and change written into our biology. While peak bone strength may belong to youth, resilience belongs to every stage. Even in later years, bones remain alive, responsive, and capable of adaptation. You might picture your own bones through time, soft and pliable in infancy, lengthening and strengthening in childhood, reaching fullness in young adulthood, and gradually adapting in the later decades. In every stage, they have held you, supported you, and moved with you. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the quiet process that keeps this living framework renewed, bone remodeling, and how it continues year after year to maintain the balance between strength and flexibility. But for now, you might rest in the thought that your skeleton has been your companion since your first breath, changing with you through every season of life. 16. The quiet renewal, bone remodeling. Even in moments of perfect stillness, when the body rests and the muscles are quiet, the skeleton is at work. It is never truly fixed, never truly finished. Deep within each bone, a silent and continuous process unfolds the slow renewal of its very substance. This is bone remodeling, the lifelong cycle of breakdown and rebuilding that keeps the skeleton strong, adaptable, and ready for the demands of life. Bone remodeling is not dramatic. It does not call attention to itself. It works quietly, cell by cell, layer by layer, like the gentle maintenance of an old, cherished building. The goal is not to change the shape of the skeleton drastically, but to keep it in perfect working order, replacing the old with the new, repairing subtle wear, and adjusting the structure to match the body's needs. This process begins with bone resorption. Specialized cells called osteoclasts arrive at a site on the bone's surface. They are large, multinucleated cells that attach themselves firmly to the bone and create a sealed space beneath them. Within this space, they release a blend of acids and enzymes that dissolve the mineral crystals and digest the collagen fibers. This clears away old or damaged bone tissue, making room for renewal. Once the osteoclasts have completed their work, they withdraw, and another set of cells takes their place, the osteoblasts. These are the builders. They begin to lay down a fresh framework of collagen fibers, creating the soft, unmineralized matrix known as osteoid. Over days and weeks, calcium and phosphate are deposited into this matrix, hardening it into strong mineralized bone. Some osteoblasts become trapped within the very bone they help build, transforming into osteocytes. These embedded cells act as the bone's caretakers, sensing strain, detecting micro damage, and sending signals to begin the remodeling process again when needed. In this way, the cycle continues without interruption, day after day, year after year. Bone remodeling serves several essential purposes. First, it repairs microdamage, the tiny cracks and stresses that naturally occur during daily activity. Without this constant maintenance, such damage would accumulate, weakening the bone over time. Second, remodeling allows bones to adapt to changes in mechanical stress. When a bone is used more heavily, remodeling strengthens it. When it is used less, remodeling allows it to become lighter, conserving energy and materials. Remodeling also plays a key role in mineral balance. Bone serves as the body's main reservoir for calcium and phosphorus minerals, vital for muscle contraction, nerve function, and many other processes. If calcium levels in the blood fall too low, bone resorption increases to release calcium into circulation. When calcium levels are high, osteoblasts work to store it back in the bone. The pace of remodeling changes over the course of life. In childhood and adolescence, the process is tilted toward building, as the skeleton grows in size and density. In young adulthood, bone formation and resorption are balanced. In later years, resorption may begin to outpace formation, leading to gradual bone loss. This is why regular activity, good nutrition, and healthy hormone balance are important at every age. They help keep the cycle in balance for as long as possible. The triggers for remodeling are both mechanical and chemical. Mechanical signals come from the stresses placed on bones during movement. Even gentle activities such as walking or stretching send vibrations through the skeleton that osteocytes can detect. These signals tell the bone where to strengthen itself. Chemical signals come from hormones, growth factors, and vitamins, all of which influence the activity of osteoclasts and osteoblasts. This quiet renewal is not uniform across the skeleton. Some areas remodel more quickly than others. The spongy bone in the vertebrae and the ends of long bones is replaced more often than the dense, compact bone in the shafts of long bones. This reflects the different demands placed on these regions and their varying roles in weight bearing and movement. Even though bone remodeling is a microscopic process, it shapes the skeleton in visible ways. The ridges and projections where muscles attach become more pronounced in response to frequent use. The thickness of a bone can increase in areas under repeated stress. Conversely, prolonged inactivity such as extended bed rest or immobilization can cause bone to lose density, becoming lighter and more fragile. The elegance of remodeling lies in its balance. Too much resorption without enough formation leads to weakening. Too much formation without resorption could make bone dense, but brittle. The body continually adjusts, seeking the middle ground that keeps bones strong yet adaptable. In healing, remodeling takes on an even more active role. After a fracture, the initial repair produces a callus of new bone that bridges the break. Over the following months, remodeling reshapes this new bone, smoothing it, aligning it with the surrounding structure, and restoring its original strength. Even years later, the remodeling cycle continues to refine the healed site. Bone remodeling also carries a quiet reminder of the deep connection between movement and health. When we move, when we walk, lift, stretch, or even shift our posture, we are speaking to our bones in the language they understand. We are sending the mechanical signals that guide remodeling, telling the skeleton where to reinforce, where to adapt, and where to lighten. You might imagine now the unseen work happening within your own bones. Somewhere deep inside, osteoclasts are clearing a small section of old tissue. Nearby, osteoblasts are laying down fresh collagen, ready to mineralize. Osteocytes are passing signals through their tiny channels, coordinating the timing of each phase. This work is slow, deliberate, and unending, the quiet heartbeat of your skeleton's renewal. In the next part of our journey, we will explore another role of the skeleton, one less obvious but equally vital: its service as a reservoir for minerals, and how it works in harmony with the body to keep our internal chemistry in balance. But for now, you might rest in the awareness of this constant care, the gentle, unhurried cycle of bone remodeling, which keeps your skeleton strong and ready for the life it carries. 17. The skeleton as a reservoir. The skeleton is more than a framework of movement and protection. It is also a storehouse, a quiet reservoir holding some of the body's most vital minerals. Hidden within its solid walls, the bones keep a reserve of calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and other elements, releasing them into the bloodstream when the body calls, and drawing them back in when the supply is plentiful. This role is not passive. The exchange of minerals between bone and blood is active, continuous, and finely regulated. At any given moment, the bone is both giving and receiving, balancing its own needs with those of the entire body. This mineral exchange is as essential as breathing, as constant as the beat of the heart, and it is guided by the same quiet intelligence that governs all living tissue. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the skeleton. About 99% of the body's calcium resides in the bones and teeth, mostly in the form of hydroxyapatite crystals that give bone its hardness. The remaining 1% circulates in the blood, where it plays critical roles in muscle contraction, nerve transmission, blood clotting, and enzyme function. This tiny circulating fraction must remain within a narrow range. Too little or too much can disrupt essential processes. When blood calcium levels drop, the body responds quickly. The parathyroid glands, 4 small structures in the neck, release parathyroid hormone, PTH. PTH signals osteoclast to increase bone resorption, freeing calcium from its mineral form and releasing it into the bloodstream. It also encourages the kidneys to conserve calcium and stimulates the production of active vitamin D, which increases calcium absorption from food. When calcium levels rise too high, another hormone, calcitonin, produced by the thyroid gland, helps bring them down. Calcitonin slows the activity of osteoclasts, reducing the release of calcium from bone, and encourages calcium storage back into the skeletal reserve. Phosphorus is the second most abundant mineral in the skeleton. Like calcium, most of it is stored in bone, where it forms part of the mineral matrix. Phosphorus is essential for producing energy in the form of ATP, for building cell membranes, and for many other cellular processes. Bone acts as the main warehouse for phosphorus, releasing it into the blood alongside calcium when needed. Other minerals, though present in smaller amounts, are also stored in bone. Magnesium helps stabilize the crystal structure of bone and supports hundreds of enzyme reactions in the body. Fluoride can incorporate into the bone mineral, making it slightly more resistant to resorption. Sodium and potassium also appear in trace amounts, contributing to the overall mineral balance. The skeleton's role as a mineral reservoir is particularly important during certain stages of life. In childhood and adolescence, minerals are drawn from the diet and locked into bone as the skeleton grows. In pregnancy and breastfeeding, the mother's bones may release stored calcium to help support the developing child. In older age, the ability to store and release minerals efficiently can decline, making careful nutrition even more important. This mineral exchange is closely tied to bone remodeling. The same cells that shape the skeleton also regulate mineral movement. When osteoclasts break down bone tissue, minerals are released into the fluid surrounding the bone, and then into the bloodstream. When osteoblasts lay down new bone, they draw minerals from the blood and lock them into the solid matrix. This push and pull keeps mineral levels stable while maintaining bone health. Diet and lifestyle influence how well the skeleton performs this role. Adequate calcium intake ensures that the body does not need to withdraw too much from the bones. Vitamin D is essential for absorbing calcium efficiently from food. Regular physical activity helps direct calcium into bone, strengthening the mineral stores. Conversely, inactivity or poor nutrition can lead the body to draw more heavily from its reserves, weakening the skeleton over time. The skeleton's reservoir function is not an optional feature, it is a central part of the body's survival system. If dietary intake falls short, the bones will release minerals to keep the heart beating and the muscles contracting. This ability to share its stored minerals is part of what has allowed humans to survive periods of scarcity. But this generosity comes at a cost. Over time, repeated withdrawals, without adequate replenishment, can thin the bone's mineral structure. Even in a healthy adult, the exchange of minerals between bone and blood is constant. Small amounts of calcium are deposited and withdrawn every day, responding to the body's changing needs. This is not wasteful. It is the natural rhythm of a living skeleton, adjusting to movement, diet, and the subtler demands of internal chemistry. If you imagine your own skeleton now, you might picture not only the shapes of the bones, but also the invisible flow of minerals within them. Calcium crystals embedded in the collagen framework, phosphorus bound into the same structure, magnesium nestled in smaller spaces, all ready to be released if needed. And in return, with every meal rich in minerals, with every moment in the sun that generates vitamin D, with every step that signals the bones to grow stronger, these minerals return to their storehouse. In this way, the skeleton is both guardian and provider. It keeps the body's vital mineral balance steady, even as it maintains its own integrity. It is a patient storekeeper, giving when needed, receiving when possible, always keeping the account in careful order. In the next part of our journey, we will step back from the details and reflect on the skeleton as a whole, this lifelong companion, hidden yet ever present, shaping our movements and quietly sustaining our lives. But for now, you might rest in the awareness that your bones are not only your structure, they are also your silent storehouse, keeping life's essential minerals in perfect balance. 18. Closing reflections on the body's frame. From the soft beginnings of cartilage in the womb to the resilient living architecture that supports you now, the human skeleton has been with you every moment of your life. It has grown with you, adapted to your movements, and borne the weight of your days in silence. As we reach the end of our journey through its hidden world, it is worth pausing to reflect on what this framework truly is and what it has quietly done for you. The skeleton is more than a collection of bones. It is a story and structure. Every curve of the spine, every arch of the foot, every joint that bends and turns is a chapter in that story. The skull tells of protection, sheltering the mind. The rib cage speaks of breath, expanding and contracting in life's rhythm. The limbs tell of movement, of reaching, walking, lifting, and embracing. We have seen how bones are alive, filled with cells that work constantly to repair, renew, and adapt. How they store the minerals that keep your body in balance. How they connect through joints, turning a rigid frame into an instrument of motion. How they work with muscles in a quiet, perfect partnership to create every gesture, every step. Your skeleton is at once strong and light, enduring and flexible. Compact bone bears weight and resists bending. Spongy bone lightens the load while still absorbing shocks. The intricate honeycomb of trabeculae aligns itself with the forces you place upon it, reshaping in response to your life. In this way, your skeleton is not fixed, but fluid, not static, but responsive. It is easy to forget the skeleton is even there. It does its work without asking for thanks, hidden beneath muscle and skin. You may notice it only in still moments, when you sense the way you are held upright without effort, or in motion, when you feel the satisfying coordination of your limbs. Yet it is always there, holding you together, protecting what is most vital, carrying you forward. The journey of the skeleton is the journey of a lifetime. In childhood, it grows quickly, lengthening the limbs and expanding the chest. In youth, it reaches its peak of strength and density. In adulthood, it quietly maintains itself, repairing what is worn, reinforcing what is stressed. In later years, it adapts again, shifting towards stability and conservation. Through it all, it remains the same loyal companion it has always been. Every movement you make is a quiet conversation between your bones and your muscles, your joints and your nervous system. The simple act of walking, the roll of the foot, the bend of the knee, the swing of the hip, is the result of countless, seamless adjustments. The skeleton does not simply hold you, it moves with you, anticipating and responding to your every intention. It also tells the story of your life in subtle ways. The way you sit, stand, and move leaves its mark. Bones remodel themselves to fit the life they live. A violinist's shoulder, subtly shaped by years of playing. A runner's shin, reinforced for the repeated impact of each stride. In this way, your skeleton is uniquely yours, shaped by your habits, your passions, and your experiences. And yet, for all its individuality, the skeleton also connects us to every other human being. The arrangement of bones, the skull, the spine, the ribs, the limbs, is a pattern we all share. It links us to those who came before, to ancestors whose bones carried them through their own lives, and to those who will come after. In this shared structure is a quiet reminder of our place in the unfolding story of humankind. As we close this journey, you might imagine your skeleton now in its entirety. The skull balanced atop the cervical spine, the vertebrae descending in a graceful column to the pelvis, the rib cage expanding gently with each breath, the arms resting by your sides, the hands poised to move, the legs supporting you firmly, the feet grounded on the earth. See how every part is connected, how each bone has its place and purpose. This living architecture is your constant companion. It will carry you through countless more movements, protect you through many more days, and quietly reshape itself in response to your life. In moments of stillness, it will hold you steady. In moments of motion, it will move with you in perfect balance. The skeleton is a masterpiece of nature's design, strong yet light, steadfast yet adaptable, silent yet essential. It is with you in every breath, every step, every moment of rest. And though it may be hidden from view, it is one of the most enduring parts of who you are. As you settle into rest now, perhaps you can feel the quiet presence of your own frame beneath you, the long bones of the legs, the curved basin of the pelvis, the tall column of the spine, the protective shell of the rib cage, the delicate structure of the skull, each part doing its work without effort, without noise, simply being. This is the body's frame, your frame holding you gently in this moment, just as it has from the beginning, and just as it will for all the days to come.